Welcome students. So we move on to the second lesson in Civics, Central Government, and this is part 2 of it. So now we learn about Prime Minister. Article 74(1) says there shall be a council of ministers. Council means group of ministers with the Prime Minister as the head to aid and advise the President. So Article 74(1) says that there should be a group of ministers along with the Prime Minister who will be helping the President. So we have learned about President in the previous session. The post of Prime Minister of India has adopted the Westminster England model of constitutional democracy. So we have taken this post of Prime Minister from where? From England. The Parliament of England is situated in Westminster, so it's called Westminster Parliament. So why it's called Westminster Parliament? Because the Parliament of England is in a place called Westminster. The leader of the majority party in Lok Sabha is appointed by the President as the Prime Minister. So the majority party is, if there is a majority party in Lok Sabha, that leader will be appointed as a Prime Minister by the President. The other ministers are appointed by the President on the advice of the Prime Minister. So that group, we learned now, Council of Ministers, that group of ministers will be appointed by the President, who will advise the President, the Prime Minister. If no party, so now we know there are group parties, like if you say Congress, we have BJP, so we have different parties, right? If no party commands absolute majority, if we don't have a majority, maximum majority in the Lok Sabha, the President can summon means call the leader of any party who in his opinion can manage to form a ministry. So just imagine we have two parties, both the parties have equal votes. So now what he could do is he could call whichever party he feels can take up that leading position. The President administers to the ministers the oath of office and of secrecy. So President is a person, in his presence only they take the oath. A person who is not a member of the Parliament can be appointed as a minister, but he has to get himself elected to the Parliament within 6 months. So here we can see a person who is not there in the Parliament, he can also become a minister, but once he becomes a minister, he should be elected in the Parliament within 6 months. Ministers are individually as well as collectively responsible to the Lok Sabha. Duties and functions of Prime Minister. Article 78 mentioned the duties of the Prime Minister. The Prime Minister decides the rank of his ministers and distributes various departments. So he is the person who will tell this minister will look after this area, this minister will look after this session. So he is the one who gives that. The Prime Minister decides the dates and the agenda of the meeting of the cabinet which he presides. So he will decide the date of the meeting, the reason why that meeting is to be held, that's called agenda of the meeting, and so that he presides, he sets forth. The Prime Minister informally consults 2 or 3 of his senior colleagues when he does not convene a cabinet meeting. So when he doesn't call for a meeting, then he informally, not formally, informally he will decide with his colleagues, okay, senior colleagues, friends we can call it as. The Prime Minister supervises the work of various ministers. So he is the one who will see whether the ministers are doing their work. To converse to the President all decisions of the Council of Ministers connecting to the government of the affairs of the Union and proposals for legislation. So he will converse, he will take this to the President. What he will take? All the decisions that are made by the Council of Ministers. These Council of Ministers, they will take decisions regarding government affairs and of the Union, that is the state and the central, and proposals for legislation, that means laws. The Prime Minister acts as the link between the President and the Council of Ministers. So he is the connection between President and the Council of Ministers. Council means group. The Prime Minister is the leader of the nation and the chief spokesman of the country. So he is the major spokesman, means person who will speak for the country. As the leader of the nation, the Prime Minister represents our nation at all international conferences like the Commonwealth, Summit of Non-Aligned Nation and the SAARC nation. So being Prime Minister, being the leader of our country, he will represent our country in various places, especially in international conferences like Commonwealth, Summit, Non-Aligned Nations, SAARC nations, etc. Council of Ministers. After the election, the President of India, on the advice of the Prime Minister, appoints the Council of Ministers. The Constitution of India restricts the number of Council of Ministers, including the Prime Minister, to 15% of the total members of the Lok Sabha. So what happens is, how many Council of Ministers you can have is 15% of the Lok Sabha. So if there are say for example 100 people in the Lok Sabha, that means they have to take only 15%. Okay, so that many Council of Ministers alone are allowed. Categories of the ministers. So there are three categories: cabinet ministers, ministers of state, deputy ministers. The cabinet is an informal body of senior ministers who form the nucleus of administration. Nucleus means center of administration. Important decisions of the government are taken by the cabinet, such as defense, that is army, finance, money, external affairs, that means international affairs, and home. So these are the, so cabinet minister is a senior minister, that's a group of senior ministers. They will be the center of administration. Ministers of state. These ministers belong to the second category of ministers in the council. They are also charge of ministries or departments, but they do not participate in the meetings of the cabinet unless invited to do so. So they will take charge of various duties in different departments, but they cannot attend the cabinet meeting. Deputy ministers. They are lowest ranked ministers in the cabinet. They assist either the ministers of cabinet or state in the performance of duties entrusted to them. Parliament of India. The Parliament is the legislative organ of the Union government. So it is a law making organ of the Union government. Organ means part. The Parliament of India consists of three parts. They are President, Rajya Sabha, the Council of States, the House of the People, the Lok Sabha. The Lok Sabha is the upper, Rajya Sabha is the upper house, and the Lok Sabha is the lower house, and it is termed as bicameral legislature. So here if you see the Parliament, we have already learnt in the first session. So we have the President, we have the Rajya Sabha, we have the Lok Sabha, and then Rajya Sabha. The Council of State or Rajya Sabha consists of 250 members, and out of whom 238 represent the state and the union territories, elected by the method of indirect election. So you have to remember this very well. So Rajya Sabha has how many? 250 members, out of which 238 people are from the state and the other are from the union territories. How are they elected? By indirect election. The 12 nominated members shall be chosen by the President from among persons having special knowledge, that is 238 is already been elected. The 12 are nominated by the President. On what basis they are elected? They should be good people in the field of literature. They should be well versed in science, sports, art and social service. Qualification of the members of the Rajya Sabha. He should be a citizen of India. He should not be less than 30 years of age. He should not hold any office of profit under any government. So he should not be a government officer. He should be a person with sound mind and monetarily solvent, that means money. Okay, he should not be a member of the Lok Sabha or any other legislature or law making organ. Term of Rajya Sabha, that means how long can Rajya Sabha be. Okay, The Rajya Sabha is a permanent house and it cannot be dissolved. So, it's a permanent house. Nobody can dissolve it. Dissolve it in the sense they cannot say, all the members can part and we no more have Rajya Sabha. It's not been possible. The members of the Rajya Sabha are elected for a term of 6 years. So, they can be, if a person is elected to Rajya Sabha, he can be there for 6 years. 1/3 of the members of the Rajya Sabha retire every 2 years and new members are elected. So, 1/3 of it, that means out of 250, 1/3 of the people are elected every 2 years because they get retired. The Vice President of India is the ex officio chairperson of the Rajya Sabha, that we saw in the previous session already. The Deputy Chairperson of the Rajya Sabha is elected by the members of the Rajya Sabhas. Money Bill. Rajya Sabha does not have any power to amendments change or reject any money bill. So, Rajya Sabha, they can only, they don't have the power to change a money bill or reject a money bill. Lok Sabha can only introduce money bill, and once it is approved by the Lok Sabha, it is passed to the Rajya Sabha for its approval. So, Lok Sabha, what they can do is they can introduce a money bill, and after they have approved it, they will send it to the Rajya Sabha for approval. If the Rajya Sabha fails to pass it within 14 days, then the bill gets passed without the approval of the Rajya Sabha. So, the bill will be sent to Rajya Sabha. The Rajya Sabha members have to approve it within 14 days. Even if they don't approve, it will get approved. Also, Lok Sabha does not need to consider the amendments proposed by the Rajya Sabha. Amendment means changes. So, Lok Sabha, they don't have to bother about whether Rajya Sabha is making any changes. Lok Sabha can reject all the proposals and it can keep on passing it. The next we move on to election of the members of the Rajya Sabha. Members of Rajya Sabha are elected by the elected members of the state legislative assembly in accordance with the system of proportional representation by means of single transferable vote. So, they are elected by the members who are there in the state legislative assembly. This process of election, which process, single transferable vote, is called as indirect election, as they are not elected by the people directly. So, we people don't elect the members of the Rajya Sabha. Lok Sabha. The Lok Sabha is the popular house of the Indian Parliament and contains elected representatives of the people. So, this is very important. So, the members of the Lok Sabha are elected by us, okay, by the common people. Maximum numbers of number of members can be elected for Lok Sabha is 552. The Lok Sabha as of today has 543 elected members. Out of these, 530 members are elected from different states, 13 members from the union territories like Pondicherry, Goa and all those. The President generally nominates 2 members to the belonging to the Anglo-Indian community. At present, the Lok Sabha consists of 545 members. So, maximum is 552. Now, we have 545. Qualification of the members of the Lok Sabha. He should be a citizen of India. He should not be less than 25. So, Rajya Sabha it was 30. Here it is 25. He should have his name in electoral rolls in some part of the country. That means he should have a voting at one part of the country. Okay. He should not hold any office of profit under the union or state government. He should be mentally sound and economically solvent. Okay. Economically solvent is he should have good sound of mind as well as money. The term of the house. Generally, the Lok Sabha enjoys a term of 5 years. So, Rajya Sabha is 6 years, here it is 5 years from the date of its first session. It can be dissolved. There we said it cannot be dissolved. Here, Lok Sabha can be dissolved by the President before the expiry of its term on the advice of the Prime Minister. So, Prime Minister, if he advises that the Lok Sabha should be dissolved, it will be. The emergency provisions of the Constitution can enable the President to prorogue or dissolve the Lok Sabha either on the advice of the Prime Minister or on being convinced that no party or no alliance of party enjoys necessary majority support in the House. So one reason for them to dissolve the Lok Sabha is advice of the Prime Minister. The other reason is if there is no majority of the party which is enjoying it, then they can also dissolve it. Election. The members of the Lok Sabha are directly elected by the people of the constituencies created on the basis of population. The Election Commission of India arranges, supervises and conducts elections to the Lok Sabha. So this is normally, your parents will go and vote, you have seen that. So that is for Lok Sabha. Universal adult franchise, this we have already learnt, is followed while electing the members of the Lok Sabha, that is 18 years and above, they can vote. All Indian citizens above 18 years of age who are registered as voters will vote for their representatives. Functions of the Lok Sabha. Any bill can be introduced and passed in the Lok Sabha. We have already learnt that. It has the same power as Rajya Sabha to participate in case of impeachment of the President and judges of the Supreme Court. So impeachment is not obeying the law. Okay. It has equal power as Rajya Sabha in passing any bill for constitutional amendment. So now here if you see in Tamil Nadu, from Rajya Sabha we have 18 members and from Lok Sabha we have 39 members. The Speaker. The Speaker is a person who will speak in the Parliament, okay, in the Lok Sabha. The Lok Sabha is presided over by the Speaker who is elected by its members. So a person will be elected by the members of the Lok Sabha who will become the Speaker, okay. The office of the Speaker occupies an essential position in our parliamentary democracy. The Speaker continues to be in the office even in the House is dissolved till a new Speaker is elected by the new Lok Sabha. That means the Speaker, even if the Lok Sabha is dissolved, he will be there as a Speaker till the next Speaker comes in. The Speaker presides over a joint sitting of the two houses of the Parliament. So he can also take position when both the houses are jointly seated. He has the power to decide whether a bill is money bill or an ordinary bill. While the office of the Speaker is vacant or the Speaker is absent from the sitting of the House, the Deputy Speaker presides except when a resolution for his removal is under consideration. So even if the Speaker is not there, who will come there? Deputy Speaker. Okay, so parliamentary session, budget session. So Indian budget will be put forward from February to May. Monsoon season, there will be a parliament session from July to September. During the winter season also, the parliament will come together from November to December. Powers and functions of the parliament. The Parliament of India has the function of legislature, overseeing of administration, passing of budget, ventilation of public grievances, discussion of various subjects like development plans, international relation and internal policy. So what is the work of the Parliament? They create laws, they see whether administration is going on well, is the budget being passed out, if they have any public complaints, they will try to sort it out, and they will discuss on development plans. They will talk about international relations and internal policies. Parliament is also vested with powers to impeach the President and to remove judges of the Supreme Court and High Court, Chief Election Commissioner, Comptroller and Auditor General of India in accordance with the procedure laid down in the Constitution. So the Parliament has the power to throw off the President, Supreme Court judges, the High Court, Chief Election Commissioner, based on the Constitution. If they go against the Constitution, they will be taken action. The Parliament has the power to change the boundaries of the state. So each state has got a boundary. If needed, Parliament can also change that. The Attorney General of India. So this is the judge, okay. The Constitution Article 76 has proved for office of the Attorney General for India. It is the highest law officer. So he is the highest, topmost law officer in the country. He is appointed by the President. He must be a person who is qualified to be appointed the judge in the Supreme Court. He may be removed by the President any time. You can be removed. He may also quit his office by submitting his resignation to the President. Duties and functions of the Attorney General of India: to give advice to the Government of India upon legal matters. So when there is a legal matter, the Attorney General of India, he can give advice which are referred to him by the President. Attorney General of India has the right of audience in all courts in the territory of India. Further, he has the right to speak and take part in the proceedings of both the houses of the Parliament. So he can speak in both the houses of the Parliament or their joint sitting and any committee of the Parliament of which may be named a member, but without a right to vote. So he doesn't have to to vote in the houses. He enjoys all the privileges and immunities that are available to a member of the Parliament. Judiciary, that is law. Judiciary is the third organ of the government. It plays a vital role in protecting the rights and freedoms of the citizens. So we find we need freedom, right? We need the rights. We should know what is our right, and that is given by the law. The Supreme Court is the guardian of the Constitution. Constitution is nothing but law. So for that law to be powerful, we need the Supreme Court. Our judiciary is autonomous of the legislative and executive wing of the union and state government. Autonomous, it can take actions as per the law. An integrated judiciary means a single judiciary hierarchy for the whole country. The judiciary plays an important role. So the law that plays a very important role in defensive the rights and freedom of citizens. It plays an important role in analyzing and interpreting the necessities of laws and the Constitution. So what is the major work? It will analyze and it will interpret. It will show what is necessary out of each law. The Supreme Court of India, New Delhi, was inaugurated on Jan 28, 1950. It succeeded the Federal Court of India, established under the Government of Indian Act of 1935, including the Chief Justice. Did we miss? Okay. Composition of the Supreme Court. At the commencement of the Constitution in 1950, our Supreme Court consisted of 8 judges. So when Supreme Court started, there were only 8 judges, including the Chief Justice. At present, the Supreme Court has 34 judges, including the Chief Justice. So first it was 8, now it is 34. Appointment of judges. The Chief Justice of Supreme Court in India is appointed by the President. The other judges are appointed by the President in consultation with the Chief Justice head. Qualification of Supreme Court judges. He must be a citizen of India. He should have worked as a judge of a high court for how many years? 5 years. He should have worked as an advocate of the high court for 10 years. He is, in the opinion of the President, a distinguished jurist. Jurist means lawmaker. The Constitution also provides for the appointment of judges to the Supreme Court on a temporary basis. So the Constitution, that means the law, it provides the appointment of judges to the Supreme Court. So they can provide a judge to the Supreme Court on a temporary basis. The Chief Justice and other judges of the Supreme Court hold the office up to the age of 65 years. They can be there as a Chief Justice and judges. The judges of the Supreme Court can resign before their term. So even before 65 they can resign by giving their resignation in writing. So they have to give it in writing to the President. The Parliament also has a power to remove the judges by invoking impeachment provision. So if they go against the law, the parliament can remove the judges. The Supreme Court has its permanent seat in New Delhi. We know that Supreme Court is in New Delhi. It may also sit any other place in India which may be decided by the Chief Justice of India with the approval of the President of India. Now we have the Supreme Court in New Delhi, but if in further they want a change, they can still decide by Chief Justice of India, and he has to get the approval of the President. Powers and functions of the Supreme Court. Original jurisdiction. The cases which are brought directly in the first instance to the Supreme Court come under original jurisdiction. So if there is a case that comes straight to the Supreme Court, it is called as the original jurisdiction. These may be dispute between the government of India and one or more states. So what will come straight to the Supreme Court? If the government of India is having any fight with any of the states, then that will go to Supreme Court. Dispute between two or more states. So two or states are fighting, say for example Tamil Nadu, Andhra, or Tamil Nadu, Kerala. Some two states are fighting over an issue, that will also go to the Supreme Court. The writs, that is the written one, laws are issued by the Supreme Court for the enforcement of the fundamental rights. So the laws, that will also be enforced because of the fundamental rights. Appellate jurisdiction. The Supreme Court is the final appellate court in the country. As regard for the appellate jurisdiction, the Supreme Court hears appeals against the decisions of the High Court in civil, criminal and constitutional cases with a certificate from the High Court, so that it is fit to appeal in the Supreme Court. So we know this word. So say for example, if there are any cases in the High Court and they want to appeal to the Supreme Court, they can go forward. Such a case can be brought before the Supreme Court only if the High Court certifies that the case invites a substantial of law as to the interpretation of the Constitution. So only after the High Court gives them the permission, they can go to the Supreme Court. Advisory jurisdiction. The Constitution confers or says on the President the power to refer to the Supreme Court any question of law or fact which in his opinion is of public importance. So if a law has to be changed, or it has to find out if there is a question in that because of public intervention, he can take that to the Supreme Court. Miscellaneous, that means others. Miscellaneous jurisdiction. The law declared by the Supreme Court is binding on all courts within the territory of India. So that is always there within the territory. The Supreme Court is authorized to make rules for regulating generally the practice and procedure of the court within the approval of the President. So Supreme Court, they can make rules for regulation to make it perfect. Judicial review. The power of the judiciary to declare a law as unconstitutional is known as judicial review. Review is you have a content and then you recheck on that. That's called as review. The Supreme Court enjoys this power. The Supreme Court of India has individual review powers with regard to, say they can some decision is made, then they take a chance to check on that. That's called as review. Dispute between the center and the state. So if there's a fight between a center and the state, they can go for a review. To interpret and clarify a provision of the Constitution about which there are some doubts and difference of opinion. So in the law, if there is any doubt or if there is any difference of opinion, they can interpret, they can read it out, they can solve it, and they can clarify that provision. Protecting the fundamental right. So here they have the right to protect the fundamental right. Those laws passed by the legislatures which are not in accordance with the Constitution. So they can also here they can review, if when they can review, they can recheck if the laws that are made by the legislature are not in accordance, they are not as same as the one in the constitution. If there is something like that, then they can go for a review. So go through the lesson.